When it comes to Ducati sports bikes, pretty much everybody is talking about the Panigale range. And with good reason. It's been their flagship steed for 10 years now, and in fact was being introduced just as I was starting to be a motoring journalist. But while it's gone through various different iterations, everybody is talking about the current top model, the V4S. Well, including us actually, as we'll be telling you our thoughts on that thing in another video. But while we were at Ducati HQ, we wanted to take a look at something else. Introduced in 2021, the Supersport 950 is a replacement for the old Supersport, and is being touted, at least in Ducati's press releases and promo videos, as the bike that has been designed to be fun on the road as well as on the track. This is the Panigale's baby brother, that sadly is quite possibly destined to be forgotten, eclipsed by Big Bro. Which is a shame really, because the big boy bikes are the stuff of bedroom posters and wet dreams, but they're not always the easiest things to live with. The shrinking violets of the world might not tickle as many pickles, but in theory they're also less likely to bite your head off. But the key word in all the marketing guff is fun. However, before we talk about what it's like to ride, let's just take a look at it for a minute, because it looks fantastic. It's got the Panigale style face, the trellis frame, the single-sided swing arm, but it has a comfier rider seat and an actual pillion seat too, not to mention an adjustable windscreen for better wind protection. And as this isn't a full-on racer, the designers have had a bit more freedom to bring in some additional design elements, like these bits around the beautifully clear display. There's less of a need for the bike to be as anorexic as the more track-focused in the family. And combine that with higher handlebars and a more comfortable riding position, this is actually the type of sports bike for me. But anyway, that's the theory out of the way. The question then becomes whether or not this is the hidden gem of the Ducati range. And I'm happy to say, it is. Even as a 950cc, or actually 937, there's something so easy about it. I liked it so much, I really didn't want to give it back. It feels sporty, but it's comfy too. The seat is plush and you've got that windscreen as well. It's nothing groundbreaking, of course, as it's obviously not the first Supersport, and in reality the only real changes from the old model are some new Euro 5 compliance and a new dashboard. But none of that was going through my head while I was riding it, because I fell in love with it quite quickly. While the Panigale has more to give than I can take, the Supersport was perfect for blasting around the country roads for a bit of fun. The quick shifter worked well, the colour dash is fantastic. I love the look of it and the styling choices, like how the clip-ons surround the fork adjusters. I love the confidence that it gives you regardless of riding ability. Honestly, a relatively new rider could jump on this with no problems at all. Don't be fooled by the engine size, it's not like jumping on something with an inline 4 like the old days. And I'd happily take this on track, even though the new Euro 5 regulations have neutered it a little compared to the old Supersport. Because Ducati will talk about the connections to the Panigale, just as I did, but in reality it's a Ducati monster that's been turned into a sports bike and had some fancy bits added on. And fancy they are. That tablet-style screen is just brilliant. It's so easy to cycle through the riding modes. And yes, this is an entry-level sports bike, but you've still got traction control, wheelie control, and at £13,000 it's half the price of the V4S. Which I know it's arguably half the bike too, but it is getting close to the same price as the Panigale V2, especially if you were to tag on another £2,000 for the S model. So at that point, at 15 grand, I imagine most people will still go for the Panigale. However, between the two, I think this is the one I would have. I'm not good enough to get the most out of the Panigale, and in fact, most people aren't good enough to get the most out of it either. But when it comes to the V4S, the V4, the V2, it all gets a bit confusing, and the question is £13,000 too expensive when compared to other things on the market? And the answer is yes. But do I still want one? Yes. It's got that Ducati-ness, but it's more civilized and easier to live with. And honestly, in the real world, easier to love. The only thing that really threw me with this is that I jumped straight onto this after being on the Desert X, and that thing was so tall that I actually ended up dropping it. Going from that to this, it felt like I was on a little 300, it felt tiny. But once I was used to the size, this is a bike I could actually push. The Panigale barely got moving with me on it, but this was just so much fun. Problem is that Ducati are having a bit of a renaissance, and I'd like to think that this is the kind of bike to be the saviour of sports bikes. Something sporty enough to get people interested, but not so intimidating that they get put off. I'm just not sure that price tag, coupled with how much praise the Panigale is getting, is going to result in it being overlooked. Only time will tell, I guess, but I really, really want one of these. The only thing is that I prefer it in white, and that's only available on the S model, which, as I say, is pricier and starts creeping into the Panigale price range too much. Then again, I can't think of a bike I've ridden for the last 5 or 6 years where I've come away feeling like I want to buy one tomorrow. So, Ducati, if you're watching this, what do you say to a more in-depth review? I can try, right?